Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I am painting yet another kitsune storyteller, mainly because I drew this pose out in a different sketchbook and I liked it so much I wanted to include it, even if it wasn't on the correct page. And I also drew some statues to go next to it. Today I'm using acrylic paints and I'll let you know about my thoughts as we get into that. Anyway, here's the rest of the video. Enjoy! Today I was messing around with some acrylic paints and I came to the realization I'm not the biggest fan of them. I decided that I would give them a good go with a sketchbook. A really thorough attempt at it. But yeah, I'm not a fan. I like how the colours pop and the outcome, but when I say the colours pop, usually that means the greys. Because whenever I tried putting pink acrylic paint on, it was like really sheer, it didn't want to work, so I had to build it up a few times. But I do like the outcome of the entirety of the sketchbook page, even though things are a little bit mishmashed, because I have the storyteller, kitsune, on the left, and then I have like two statues on the right. One being a cat guardian, and the other one just being a random girl's head with a little flower thing going on. Um, I know it was a little bit random, but it was just to fill space, and I actually really liked how the statues came out, like, paintedly. I like drawing statues. But, my one gripe was that when using the acrylics, I could never get them to behave the way I wanted to. I was stupid, and I wouldn't let the paint dry, being completely impatient. I would just go straight in, blending it out, and then I'd end up muddying the colors, and then, well, you know, I'd always end up with a bit of a mess at the end. But hey, that just means there's room for improvement. I could practice with acrylics again and get better at it. I used to use acrylics fairly often, but I think the reason why I've gone so out of practice with it is because the last thing I painted was a big set of drawers that I intended to sell, and then it didn't sell, and then I kind of got a bit disheartened and I hadn't touched it since. And thinking about the drawers, they were fairly big, so it's not like I was doing lots of little detail work. I was also painting flowers on it and not an animal, so that probably made a difference. acrylics straight out of the tube is way different than using paint markers. With acrylic paint markers, I feel like I have more control over the situation. I can easily go back over it. It's a thinner paint, so it's less thick despite the opaqueness. So I feel like I have a bit more freedom to do what I need in a sketchbook with it. Whilst acrylics are quite thick, clumpy, one benefit of them is I can mix it to make different colours, but they're just, I don't have much control over it. But that's probably, again, me being out of practice with them. In saying that, I suppose I have to question why I didn't have much control over it no matter what brush size I had. You would think with a smaller brush I'd have more control over smaller areas, but I felt just as clumsy with it as I did with the bigger brush, and I don't know why. I just have more precision with other medias. At the end of the day, I'll need to practice more with it. I decided to draw another kitsune storyteller mainly because in another sketchbook I had done a little doodle of one and I really liked the pose. It was leaping like a fox does when it's hunting, and I thought, ooh, that would look really nice if I drew that and had all the tails draping down from the bottom. So that's why I did it again, even though I had drawn it before. I actually had this sketch when I was working on the page before. Couldn't quite work out how to fit it into the page with all the other drawings, because I knew that if I was going to draw it, it was going to have to be big, so I decided to leave it for the sketchbook page. I had to go in with some of the darkest colours first for the statues. Um, the reason why is because I wanted to be able to push more the midtones and highlights and then keep track of where everything is. I'm not really used to working from darkest to lightest because that's not really my regular process, except for using digital, but it's very much different using acrylics. Hey, it taught me a valuable lesson in using my acrylics because now that I'm putting my darkest colour first in the shadows and underneath things, I'm able to more clearly see the shape of what I'm trying to paint, even when my sketch lines are completely covered up. I'd gone in with just a thick base colour throughout the entire cat and then tried to do the details. I guarantee the proportions will be all weird, nothing would make much sense, I would get more confused and frustrated, but because I did it this way, it's alleviated some of that pressure. By giving it a chance to actually dry, I was able to build up more definitive colours, and I could use a little bit of water just to blend out where I wanted it to smooth transition, like create that little bit of gradient. And at some point I thought maybe I didn't need that because I did still have some of the original paint on my palette, so it was a mix of the both, mostly going for the paint though because I wanted to use up what was there, I didn't want to waste it. I don't know why, but I went back to putting in a base colour before building up my shading and then lighting. I kind of wish I didn't do that, but I don't know, I think I was following habit or got distracted and went back to it, and then I just fell back into old habits, despite the fact that painting with the darker shadows first and then working up towards the brighter colours would have had a nicer outcome. Looking back on it, this part where I was doing the chest is kind of frustrating to me. I know it doesn't look like that in the end, just I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, why did I make that choice? Why is that so high up? Hindsight is 2020, am I right? When mixing my black and grey paint, I decided to add a little bit of phthalo blue to it, just to kind of cool the tones down a bit, because it was really warm. Like, I don't know why it angled more towards, like, a brownish grey, but adding that bit of blue brought it back to, like, a white bluish grey. It doesn't make much sense if you don't know a lot about paint mixing and color theory, but it makes a much prettier grey in my opinion, and I'm glad I did that because I did accidentally forget to add the blue at one point, decided I hated it, went over that section again. I can't point it out now because I can't remember where it was, but I just remember hating it. I had to go over the cat's face multiple times, mostly because I kept losing the shape I was going for. Because of that, I had to do it a few times. I ended up letting it dry, putting a sketch back on top of it just so I can see some pencil lines, and then I actually built on top of that. And that seemed to work, and I actually finally got to an outcome I was happy with the cat's head. But that's not what you're seeing right now. I don't think this one's working either. Let's try something else, shall we? This is looking more promising. I put the sketch lines in. Let's see if this works out. Yay, I got it right this time! And now on to the girl statue. I tried to take the skills that I had learned from working on the cat onto this girl, but there were instances where I had to go back and fix it again. Basically, we had another face situation, but this time it was her mouth. I worked with the darkest points of her hair first because I thought that would be the most fun way to go about it, and also it'll make layering the front parts and also the parts just closer to the quote unquote camera easier to paint. Added some more blues into the shadows of this one, and then I actually added the same color back onto the cat, though I don't think I recorded that section. Um, I did that because I liked how it looked like a bit of bounce light. Very subtle bounce light, but it was kind of like, almost like a nighttime shadow. It's difficult to explain, but it made a really nice effect that I enjoyed. So I added it. I was still using a lot of blending in this one. It was because I wanted it to be like a softer light than the cat was. I still used harsher lighting when it dried, but I wasn't too concerned about it other than on the hair. That part I wanted to look really quite blocky and like solid, whilst I wanted the face to seem quite soft. And looking at the finished drawing, I think it succeeded in that. I ended up having to create a makeshift easel by propping my sketchbook up on... I ended up having to make a makeshift easel by propping my sketchbook on another paint palette. I had to do this because the glare was just causing me to struggle to see what shade I was using, because it was reflecting so much. I didn't have this issue with the other paintings in this page, but I was definitely having it with that one. And it looked so much better on camera than after I propped it up as well, because the glare wasn't happening to the camera too. In fact, I didn't even notice the glare was that bad with the other drawings until I had actually started editing this video. I was trying to blend the face so much that I ended up making it rounder than I actually wanted it to be. I wanted it to have a bit more of a sharper, pointed chin, so I had to go back in with some dark paint and fix that profile. At this point, you can probably tell that I was having a bit of issues with the mouth. I was either coming out too small, it was a little bit on the weird, wonky side, it was facing the wrong way. She was frowning when I wanted it to be like a neutral, slightly smiley position. It took a lot of back and forth. I'm happy with how it came out in the end, but I wish I had done it better the first time. I wish I hadn't drawn it so close to the kitsune. Because of the close proximity, it made painting her hair a little bit awkward. Mostly because I had to be conscious of where the kitsune's paws were, considering he was on the front of the page and she was behind him. To me, in my mind, they are two separate images, so there should have been a bit more space between them. I don't know why I overlapped them the way I did, but it's been done now, so I have to live with it. I had an image in mind of what I wanted a face to look like, but because I was spending my time focusing on how to use these materials effectively, I was kind of losing that image, and then once it was gone, I had to start from scratch. So, for some reason, I didn't go over the face with the pencil once dry like I did with the cat, but I still somehow succeeded in creating that image that was in my mind at the very end. It definitely started to look a bit like a muddy mess again. I managed to bring it back, but it did take a little bit of work to get there. I really was not on my game today. Painting in the highlights and the hair was really fun though. Because I used white gesso instead of white acrylic, it stands out a lot more, and I mixed that in with the black just to make like a very pale grey, and chef's kiss, it was great. These little yellow flowers were meant to be buttercups, but they ended up just being blobs of sorts, mostly because my paintbrushes were struggling to paint on such a small scale. I do have smaller paintbrushes, but I will reserve those for watercolours because I don't want them to get all gunked up and ruined with the acrylics. I'm sure they would be fine if I used them, because if you take good care of your paintbrushes, they're quite versatile, you can use them for a lot of things. But I know that sometimes I tend to be a bit rough with them, so I have some paintbrushes I will reserve for one specific media. I knew I wanted to make a hairband of sorts using a green vine and some yellow flowers. This was to break up the sea of grey that was in the statues. Because the kitsune was a blue and pink kind of combo, I needed another colour in with the statues to have them stand out, so they wouldn't fade into the background. When YouTubers make miniatures and they say, if it's broken, cover it in moss, I think that saying still works with paintings. I really liked adding moss. I used a mixture of dark green, mid green, and a bright yellow to create like moss of lighting, and I think it turned out so pretty and so nice. I'm glad I did it. Even though the cat didn't really need it, I still added it. I think it just made it that bit nicer. I mainly placed moss on the very tops of things that would be like facing the sky, and occasionally a little bit in where I think the paint is getting a little ugly, but mostly just where the light would be hitting the statue, because that is pretty much where moss might grow. I try to keep it realistic in that sense, but not too realistic where it would stand out too much against the stones. Using the least amount of detail as possible, I tried to shape the moss to make it look like it was a 3D object, because when you look at actual moss, it's quite pillowy in how it looks, and if you squish it, it squishes down, so it's quite soft. So I wanted it to look kind of like blobs of green moss on the statues, and I think it turned out really well. You can probably see that I've outlined a little bit around the statues and the fox using a dark blue pencil. I'm using that and a little bit of gold ink just to add a bit of sparkle for the page. And like that, we are finished. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you did, and heck, why not? Tell me your cat's name. I love cats, and I do love creative cat names. It's always fun. Bye-bye!